Why are you here? We'd really like to do a quick poll and find out why you're here so that we can be targeting the presentations accordingly. Nico, can you pull up the poll? All right. I'm gonna have to put on my reading glasses again. So which best describes you? Are you starting a career? Do you have a job right now, but you'd like to make it a little greener? Are you maybe looking to transition to a greener job? Or maybe start a green business / volunteer organization? Or maybe you're not like interested in green employment yourself right at the moment, but you're just curious about green jobs in general. Let's take a look at what our panel says, our poll says rather. Okay, so most of you are curious about green jobs. I think it looks like the next biggest category is people looking to transition to a greener job, and then we have a lot of career starters. That's fantastic. Thank you for joining us today. And some people who like their current jobs want to make them green, and then a pretty large number of people who are interested in starting a green business or volunteer organization. Well, thank you for that information. That's terrific. I think it's going to really help our panelists speak to your immediate concerns. So, speaking of which, it's time to introduce our first speaker, our keynote, Justine Burt. Justine is program lead at Manzanita Works, which is a nonprofit organization based in San Francisco that focuses on worker quality of life and the quality of life of their families too. She comes to this nonprofit job after 20 years as a sustainability behavior change consultant, specifically focused on energy efficiency, alternative transportation, and waste reduction. So Justine is going to, are you there, Justine? I can't quite see you. Are you able to start now?
Yes.
There you are.
All set. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us. I want to start out with a trivia question, and I'm going to give a copy of my book, The Great Pivot, to the person who gets closest without going over to the right answer. So 100 days ago, Joe Biden became our president. He started off, and what kind of economy did he inherit? I specifically want you to guess the number, guesstimate how many workers were hit by the downturn. So keep in mind that when Biden started as president, there were 10.7 million people officially unemployed, but the actual number of workers hit by the downturn was higher than that. How many millions of people were hit by the downturn? Please put in the chat. It's 26.8 million workers. 26.8 million workers. So that includes 10.7 million officially unemployed, U3 unemployed, 4.9 million people who dropped out of the workforce, who just stopped looking completely, 3.7 million looking but not in the last 4 weeks, and 7.5 million had cut in pay and hours. So that's potentially up to 26 million people who could be doing green jobs, who could be building a resilient future for us. And so what I want to share with you today are some ideas about projects that we could be doing to build that resilient future that we all and future generations need. So COVID disrupted so many systems in our society. We know it disrupted healthcare, public transit, where we work, where our kids go to school. It disrupted the commercial food supply chain. And the picture you see here is a farmer plowing under potatoes. Remember a year ago, like last March, when all of a sudden we locked down, restaurants were closed, hotels were closed, schools were closed, and we all thought, oh, the farmers and the dairy farmers are just going to switch their food products over to the grocery stores. But it doesn't work like that. Ag contracts with the restaurants and the hotels and schools. And so farmers were plowing under potatoes and throwing out onions, and dairy farmers were throwing out millions of gallons of milk that they couldn't sell. And it was just, it's so tragic in a time where 1 in 4 Californians are food insecure. The number of people going to food banks is twice what it was a year and a half ago. And that's expected to continue, not to go back to pre-pandemic levels for another 10 years. So we're throwing away 40% of all the food we raise and grow at a time when 1 in 4 Californians are food insecure. So COVID disrupted all of these systems and showed us which systems are brittle and vulnerable, when in fact we need resilient, sustainable systems. And so this is an opportunity for us to build back better and to think, what is our vision of a sustainable, resilient future? My book discusses 30 different projects in these 5 areas. Work to decarbonize our energy system, partially meaning our buildings, decarbonize our transportation system, create a circular economy. That's the reduce, reuse, recycle, compost instead of the linear flow of extraction, manufacturing, use, disposal. The 4th area is minimizing food waste. And the 5th area is restoring healthy forests. We sure need it after 4 million acres burned last fall. Healthy waterways, healthy soils, and wildlife populations. And there are so many funding options. If you've got the funding, you can create the jobs. So many different funding options available to the private sector, to the nonprofit sector, to the public sector. Just within the private sector, some people are using microloans to get their businesses started. Some people are using crowdfunding. There's community capital, impact investing. We all know about commercial bank loans. There's project finance and venture capital. The nonprofit sector primarily gets its money from either philanthropy or government grants or revolving loan funds, or does fee for service. And the public sector could be doing a lot more to levy taxes and fees on the unsustainable activities, and then use those revenues, disperse them to fix what was broken or to build things in a more sustainable way. Green bonds are growing really quickly. It's a really exciting area. So think about this as I give you several examples of different types of green jobs that we could be scaling up and replicating. So this is an image from San Antonio, put in a wildlife overpass. Wildlife tries to cross roads and highways looking for one of 3 things, either food or shelter or a second breeding population. And if we can have more of these construction projects to build overpasses or underpasses, more wildlife will be able to cross. We all know about in the Bay Area, the South Bay Salt Pond Restoration Project, 25-year project, levying $12 per parcel tax that was passed by 67% of voters several years ago, that's allowing us to plant native plants and to move earth around. Think about the people moving the earth in these pieces of equipment. They love their jobs. They know that they're restoring the bay for wildlife, and it makes them excited to get up in the morning and do this kind of work. We are all in the Bay Area proud of the Marin Carbon Project, where I'm sure many of you know, if you lay out a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch of compost on an acre of land where there are native grasses, that those grasses sink much deeper roots and sequester carbon. Topsoil, building topsoil is such an opportunity to address climate change, and there's a lot more we could do, like what's happening in Marin. Many of us are brokenhearted about all the plastics in the Pacific Ocean. There was a Sierra Club study that found that 46% of the plastics in the Pacific gyre between Hawaii and California, 46% is lost in abandoned fishing nets. There's an Italian company, Aquafil, that's actually working with volunteer scuba divers up in Washington State to pull those nets, those nylon 6 nets in, and then pay the fishermen to cut off certain parts of the nets, fold them, put them in 1,000-pound sacks, and then they're shipped to Slovenia, where they're recycled into new nylon 6 textiles. So either swimsuits or socks or carpeting. And so with more funding, Ocean Voyages Institute has about $100,000 a year. If they had more funding, there's more they could do to clean plastics out of the Pacific Ocean. Wouldn't you like to work on that? So this is a picture of a Stanford student, and he was sent home early for COVID spring break last spring. And he and some classmates were hearing about all the commercial farmers and dairy farmers who were throwing away food at a time when more people than ever were going to the food banks. And they started a nonprofit called FarmLink. They raised funds from their friends and family, and they heard that there was a farmer in Oregon that was throwing out 50,000 pounds of onions that he couldn't sell through the contracts he had for the commercial sector. And so they rented a truck and went, picked it up and brought it back to the Los Angeles Food Bank. There's so much more work we could be doing to divert surplus food to places that need it. Now, on the private sector side, I think it's so interesting that Imperfect Produce, used to be called Imperfect Produce, is now called Imperfect Foods, has raised round after round of venture capital funding because the VCs believe there's so much potential to divert ugly produce and sell it to people. I mean, how often do you see a three-legged carrot in the supermarket? Not very often. And yet, if you chop that up with a green and yellow cucumber and some lumpy tomatoes and add it to lettuce, it still makes a great salad. So there's an opportunity to divert more food to people who can consume it. This is one of my favorite stories from the book. So St. Vincent de Paul, we all know the thrift stores have been inundated with donations over the last year. A lot of people are sheltering in place at home and they've been cleaning out their houses. And even when the thrift stores weren't open, people were still dropping off boxes full of stuff and bags full of stuff. And so what's interesting is that St. Vincent de Paul, the location in Lane County, Oregon, which key tip, they are right down the street from the University of Oregon. In 2016, they hired Mitra Chester, who's a fashion designer. And they said, Mitra, could you help us upcycle some of the donations we're getting so we can sell them for more than what we could get if people just drop them off and we put them up in a hanger. And so the first week there, Mitra started in the donation piles. And remember, it's right up the street from University of Oregon. She found a lot of Western gear and military gear, and she thought, students might like to wear these to parties. So she put those out for sale. But more importantly, she found ways to upcycle some of the donations she was seeing. And she started taking flannel shirts and hoodie sweatshirts and cutting off the sleeves, and then sewing the flannel sleeves onto the hoodie sweatshirt bodies. And she put a batch of those out. And as soon as the students found out about these cool new shirts, they sold out. She made another batch, they sold out. She would take old couches that were donated, like picture a leather love seat that's ripped and stained, and she cut it up and made sewed tote bags out of it. Mitra took their average daily sales from $600 a day to $1,500 a day, giving St. Vincent de Paul an extra $300,000 a year to pay her salary, but then to provide the safety net for Lane County, Oregon, for the people who live there. So I think it'd be cool if every thrift store had a 6-month or a 12-month intern right out of a fashion degree program to do this kind of upcycling for us. This is a picture of the Berkeley Tool Lending Library, which has been around since 1979. And I think every city and town should have a tool lending library. 482 towns in California, if everyone had 2 full-time workers who lent out construction, woodworking, landscaping tools for free to the community, then we wouldn't all have to buy the same 100 tools that sit unused most of the time in our garages. So this has been around since 1979. Berkeley got a $30,000 community development block grant at the time to start them off with the tools, with the idea that they would lend them out to lower income folks in Berkeley. And now it's beloved community amenity. Speaking of tools, this is a picture up in Portland. So these people are deconstructing this house. In 2016, the city of Portland was seeing hundreds of old Victorian houses being demolished and thrown away every year. And they thought, this is such a shame. We're throwing away solid oak wood flooring. The old growth timber beams that you see on the left side of the picture, that alone is worth half of the value of the deconstruction project. They were upset that people were throwing away kitchen cabinets and clawfoot tubs and porcelain sinks and solid wood doors. And so they said, if you're going to tear down a house that was built before 1916, and they've recently upped it to 1940. If you're going to tear down a house built before 1940, you have to deconstruct it instead of demolish it. And as a result, for the first year, they gave away $2,500 grants to cover the cost differential between deconstruction and demolition. And they also did a training for 14 people, 3-day, 1-weekend training, and then got people out in the field. They trained 2 people who were right out of prison, 7 people were homeless, and the rest had entry-level skills to do this kind of work. And what's so cool about this is when you teach people with entry-level skills how to deconstruct a building, you're also teaching them what? How to construct a building, or how not to construct a building, like what's missing. So these are all projects that we could be doing in our community, that we could be catalyzing to create green jobs that so many people would love to be doing, to give them a sense of meaning and purpose. So here we are, globally, we're burning 40 gigatons of greenhouse gases of fossil fuels per year, creating 40 gigatons of greenhouse gases per year. And to keep the global average temperature increase to 2 degrees, we need to cap it at 500 gigatons. This is where the 10 years, we have 10 years to sort this all out from. So here's a picture of one of my friends having her natural gas burning water heater replaced with an electric heat pump. And this kind of work to decarbonize buildings needs to happen. There are 14 million buildings in California between single family homes, multifamily, commercial buildings, schools. And a lot of them, most of them burn natural gas for space heating, water heating, many for them for cook stoves and for drying, but space heating and water heating at the very least. That's a lot of jobs. That's a lot of work. Now notice the difference between this picture, which is a commercial building retrofit in Sunnyvale. You can see it's a 1960s concrete tilt-up, one-story. Notice how dark this picture is, and notice how light this picture is. Look at the difference between these two. Notice in this brighter picture, there's no artificial light going on. There's a few things that the contractor did, the developer did, that make the space a lot brighter. They added skylights, natural light. They put white fabric on the ceilings and a whitewash on the floor. So you can see a few little changes can make all the difference in terms of how much artificial light you need in a space. There's so many upgrades we could be doing, and we need green jobs. We need people to do this upgrade work. At every fire station, every police at the municipal level, every police station, every fire station, every hospital, every K through 12 school should have a solar microgrid. Here we are looking at, concerned about the wildfire season coming up this fall. And if we had solar microgrids, which means solar photovoltaics, energy storage, electric vehicle charging, and then intelligence, monitoring, communications, and control, so that if PG&E or the utility has to turn off the power so that when the wind picks up, so wildfires don't start, then these organizations could cut off from the grid and still serve the community. So there's a big opportunity to do these retrofits. Here's a K through 12 school in Salinas. Generate Capital invested $5 million in 6 K through 12 schools in the Salinas school district. So the school district pays the same amount now per kilowatt hour, and they have uninterruptible, 100% renewable, clean power. Again, so much work we could be doing. We also know, those of us who've seen our communities do greenhouse gas emission inventories know that transportation's a really big part of our emissions inventory. In Fremont, I was involved with their emissions inventory, and it was 52% of their greenhouse gas. So a lot of people would like to be able to bike, but they don't feel safe sharing the road with cars. If we could create more protected bike lanes like this one in Davis, then more people would feel comfortable getting out on their bicycles. 48% of trips in urban and suburban areas are 3 miles or less. If people could bike to get groceries, to drop off things, to pick up things, then we could cut down on our carbon footprint for our transportation. So this all leads me to so how many jobs could we be creating that are green? This is based on research that I did on other organizations who've already crunched all these numbers. We could be creating 17 million green jobs in the US just in these 6 areas. So Mark Jacobson and his grad students at Stanford calculated we could be creating 5.2 million green jobs to move to 100% renewable energy in the US. The new Civilian Conservation Corps, I believe Biden's calling it Climate Conservation Corps. That program's on its way. We already have Climate Corps, which based in Marin. But if we created as many climate conservation core jobs as we had during the New Deal, that would be 3.4 million jobs. We certainly need it to restore our forests, healthy waterways, soils, wildlife populations. High-speed rail, if we had a high-speed rail system like Europe does, like China, like Japan, that would be 2.5 million jobs. If we had mostly organic agriculture instead of in the low single digits, that would be about 1.1 million jobs. In the US, we recycle or compost about 32% of our waste. In California, it's a little higher. It's 37% when you average all the towns and cities in California. If we went for 75%, that would be a little over 1 million jobs. And the building energy efficiency retrofits I talked about, 800,000 jobs. So right there, that's 17 million we could be creating. And the last thought I want to leave you with is that there's a term in Japan called ikigai, and it means reason for living. And people in the Okinawa prefecture have some of the longest life expectancies in the world, in part because they have a really healthy diet, in part because they're active, but also people well into their 11th decade feel useful in their community. So if you look at ikigai through the lens of the American work culture, you have ikigai at work if you're doing work you love, that the world needs, that you can be paid, that someone will pay you for, and that you're good at. And I wish that for more people. If you have questions for me, please do reach out, thegreatpivot@gmail.com. My book's available through Chelsea Green Publishing. And that's what I have to share with you.
Thank you so much, Justine. You know, it's funny, I've heard your presentation several times now in the practicing, and each time I'm like inspired in you. It's just so much great detail in there. And I would urge people to check out the book. We at the Environmental Forum have been reading it and loving it. It's called The Great Pivot, Creating Meaningful Work for a Sustainable Future. And it's just got some tremendous examples and further information in it. So to take these big, inspiring, beautiful ideas and talk about what's happening right here in Marin, we're going to turn to our first panelist, Jennifer Green. Jennifer is the Customer Programs Manager at Emcee. And today she's going to be talking to us about Emcee's programs for residential energy efficiency and for workforce education and training. So welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much to Environmental Forum of Marin for inviting me to speak to this great audience. My name, like you said, is Jennifer Green. I'm a Manager of Customer Programs at Emcee. And I focus on residential energy efficiency programs and workforce education and training programs. It's really good to see so many job seekers when we did that poll, and clean energy advocates, those of you that are just looking to know more about green jobs and clean energy, as well as potential employers and business owners and residents of Marin, hopefully, and beyond Marin. Emcee reaches beyond just the county of Marin. So I wanted to talk about what we are offering. Emcee's workforce program, it helps out a number of different groups. It translates, you know, the program is basically around training for contractors and for job seekers and educational opportunities for them. But most importantly, and what I want to focus on today, is finding jobs and matching job seekers with green energy jobs. Sorry about that. Emcee started in 2010. We are actually the first community choice aggregator in the state of California. And what that is that we have the opportunity at Emcee to provide clean and renewable energy or electricity to our customers. We're a nonprofit government agency. So we answer to the communities that we serve. And so our mission addresses our mission addresses the issues that our constituents want to have raised. And those are to provide renewable energy and stable rates for electricity. So anybody who participates and receives electricity from Emcee, and you can see it on your PG&E bill if you're an Emcee customer, you're getting at least 60% renewable electricity from us at stable rates and competitive rates. But we also want to lower our carbon footprint through energy efficiency. And what energy efficiency is a little bit different than renewable energy for those of you that don't know already. It's basically using a technology that does the same work for using less electricity. And then after we handle all of these parts of our mission, we have renewables, we have energy efficiency, then we talk about electrification. If you could go to the next slide. You can see here different components of electrification, which is the basis for this workforce program. But buildings are the second largest source of greenhouse gas emissions at least 26%. So if we want to electrify and clean up the environment for our buildings through electrification versus using natural gas and coal, we need to address buildings and make all of the technologies that power those buildings electric-based. So what is Emcee doing to address those on-site emissions while also looking to reduce the amount of energy it takes to heat and cool a building, all while making that building healthy, safe, and affordable to run? Next slide. We offer a workforce program. Our workforce education and training program, in a nutshell, provides benefits and opportunities for contractors looking to understand electrification and energy efficiency more. But more importantly, even for this audience, I believe, is the opportunities to get a job in the energy efficiency and electrification field. Just this year, we started working on this program, but we just launched it this year. Emcee is offering a really unique program that provides education and on-the-job training for job seekers and job-ready candidates for energy contractors contractors are working on heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, or HVAC, insulation, electrification, home performance work, and other specialties. Next slide. Lots of entry-level jobs in this sector are attainable with just a high school diploma or equivalent, and they can be enhanced with targeted training and certification and skills that contractors are seeking. Lots of candidates for this Emcee program qualify to participate. And to qualify, you need to be at least a high school graduate. You need to be able to actively participate in all job duties, have a positive attitude, and be ready for physical labor, sometimes in tight spaces, like in attics, in under houses, in crawl spaces. And most importantly, you have a love to promote a clean energy future. Once you get a job with an energy contractor, there's lots of room for growth, skills development, increasing responsibilities within the company, and along with that, great benefits and salary are in your future. For this program, if you're looking for a green energy job, we're providing paid on-the-job training where we match you with a contractor who is actively seeking out new staff. We'll provide to the contractor, or to you, the job seeker, on behalf of the contractor, up to 160 hours to just try out a new career opportunity, with the option to be hired for a full-time job afterwards. The whole point of this program is to match contractors who are looking for workers with those people who are vetted through our program and ready for jobs in the energy efficiency and home performance realm. Some of the jobs, just to give you an example of some of the types of work you would get, are being a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning technician, or an electrical or plumbing technician. Justine spoke about heat pump water heaters. That's one of the electrification options. You could be a heat pump water heater installer. You can also work in sales for those contractors because they need sales staff. They also need admin staff. You can work in insulation, high performance construction and exterior construction, lighting technicians. There's quite a few different jobs that you can do after you do this 160-hour paid experience with somebody looking for new staff. Next slide. Just quickly on the contractor side, if you are a contractor looking for new staff members, we also have options for you. We offer no cost matching for you to find these job seekers, and we vet the job seekers for you through an interview process with our partners at Strategic Energy Innovations, or SEI as you may know them. And we shepherd the whole process with the contractor and the job seeker. So everybody gets wraparound services and gets the assistance that they need to make a great match and start with a great new career. Last slide, I'll leave it there. Again, my name's Jennifer Green. If you have any questions about this program or are interested in it, feel free to email me at this email address. But even better, if you want to apply as a job seeker and you want to start working in the energy industry, you can go straight to Energize Careers at seiinc.org and express your interest in applying for the program. From then, you can fill out the application and get started. You can also contact us at workforcedevelopment@mcecleanenergy.org. And with that, I will stop and answer questions that you have in the Q&A section.
Thank you so much for that, Jennifer. So much great detailed information on jobs in energy related fields. That's terrific. I think a lot of people on this call are going to find that useful. Our next panelist is Cyan Dandridge. Cyan is a founder and executive director of two nonprofits in Marin. One of them you may have heard of before, called Marin Cell, or Marin School of Environmental Leadership, based right here in sunny San Rafael, part of Terra Linda High School. And the other one is SEI, which I think you've heard Jennifer reference a few times. And I think you probably didn't catch this because Justine didn't name it directly. She said, she was talking about the Civilian Conservation Corps and how now there's a program called Climate Corps based in Marin. Well, that's an SEI project as well. So Cyan's been very busy. She's been in this field for about 30 years, helping to launch people in careers in sustainability, green tech, and energy efficiency. Just a whole lot of tremendous and impressive and inspiring resume, Cyan. And she's here today to talk to us about launching careers in sustainability. Over to you, Cyan.
Okay, well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So SEI, we, as we mentioned, we're based in Marin. If you can go to the next slide. So our mission is to build leaders to drive sustainability solutions. So that's really core to what we do. We are, we see a world where our vision is a resilient world where all communities thrive. We have a very strong focus on equity and on resiliency. And so this is a super important part of all of the work we do. As Anne Christine mentioned, next slide, I think. So I started SEI in 1996. 1997. So we've been around for a long time. I started the School of Environmental Leadership in, I think it was 2010. So that's also been around for a while. And we've always had this focus on building leaders to drive sustainability solutions. So we work from kindergarten all the way through to career. So our work is really squarely focused on how can we make sure to serve the broad variety of people that can have significant impact in building that more resilient world. So that's the focus of what we do. What I'm going to do next is just kind of talk to you about some of our different programs that I think are most applicable to searching and trying to find green careers. So next slide. So yes, as I mentioned, we've been around for a long time doing a lot of really significant work. Yeah, next slide. So one of our programs that I mentioned is our Energized Colleges program, and that's really focused on how can we work with colleges to provide both academic learning, so that we work directly with professors in colleges to bring sustainability into different academic courses. Also link to internships so that those students that are going through a college can have real world experience and also start to develop their network. That's super important from my perspective as you're trying to find jobs of any kind, but especially in the green field, is establishing your network. So one of my early recommendations for anyone that's starting to look at trying to develop into a green career is establishing your network. And as you're working in that internship, even if that internship isn't exactly the right job for you, to make sure that you're developing really good connections and using that existing connection into that internship to build out those connections into other jobs and other people that you might connect with through that organization. In addition to the internship, we also usually will have a Climate Corps fellow, which I'll talk about next, that's also placed at the university. And that fellow is usually a recent grad. It could be someone that's been in their career that are transitioning into a green career, but they're responsible for working with the existing college students, but also working with facility staff at the site to try and upgrade facilities as well. So a big part of our program is kind of looking at how can we bring together lots of different organizations or lots of different entities within an organization to build a better future. Next slide. So our Climate Corps program, which was referenced, it's been around for a long time. It's been in existence for 10 years now. So we have a really good established network of Climate Corps graduates. We have Climate Corps fellows that are placed in all different kinds of organizations doing all different kinds of work. So they might work on a trip commute program for city employees, or they might work on renovating different buildings in a university, or looking at zero waste kind of opportunities in a school district, or getting a green ribbon certification for a school. There's all kinds of different ways that our Climate Corps fellows work. We partner with for-profit, nonprofit, government agencies. We place mostly recent grads, but as I said, also people that are transitioning their careers into these organizations. And they do significant, meaningful work. We do a lot of training over the course of their time, which is usually a 10-month period, and really supporting them in their job and also supporting the partner. And we see roughly an 85% placement rate into high roads green careers, or into kind of a higher education, maybe a master's degree after the course of this program. So it's a very successful program. We're currently finding ways that we can try and influence Biden's civilian Climate Corps program that he's been announcing, to try and help communicate the mistakes we've made, but also just making sure that the next round of Climate Corps that's coming out of the federal government is not just focused on natural resource conservation, but is also looking at all of the other ways that we can influence climate protection, looking at buildings primarily, and other kinds of transportation, all renewable energy, all of the other kinds of things that can happen. Next slide. So the other program that that we're working on is our Energized Careers. Jennifer mentioned this program, but so we are working directly with Emcee on really trying to find pathways for people, especially disadvantaged workers, pathways into high roads green careers. So really looking at what is a high road green career that is something that is high paying, that's something that might be bringing a you know, somebody into a joyful level of work, rather than feeling like they're you know, not doing good things for the earth, not doing good things for their world. There's something that they can be proud of, and that they're getting a high pay wage in going through this program. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail in this because Jennifer, I think, really covered it pretty well. But this program right now, we're started in Marin, and starting this fall, we're going to be statewide working on this program. So lots of trying to just really provide lots of opportunities, especially for disadvantaged workers, trying to bring people out of poverty and into those high road green careers. Next slide. So I just want to highlight David's pathway, because I think, you know, as people, there's roughly 34% of you that were looking at how can I either transition into a brand new career that's a green career, or how can I transition from whatever career I'm in right now into a green career. And I think David is a great example of that kind of pathway. So David, I met David at he went to Sonoma State. So I had given a talk at a class at Sonoma State, and he came up to me afterwards and was really excited about the work that we did and asked how he might be able to get involved. I suggested that he volunteer for us. He did so, and then from there launched into a Climate Corps fellowship. So he became a fellow at Oakland Unified, then went from there into a second fellowship at Santa Rosa Junior College. While he was there, he basically talked his way into designing a position for himself at the college, and he's now the district's sustainability and energy programs manager. And he hosts a number of other Climate Corps fellows as well. And he has done so much incredible work while he's there. You know, he's been able to write grants that are massive in scope, and to develop microgrids at the campus in order, you know, solar microgrids in order to make sure that the campus can stay online and also be a hub for when power goes off in the whole community. He was awarded the Sustainability Champion at the California Higher Education Sustainability Conference, the only award that's given to an individual, so a really prestigious award. So David is an amazing person, and you know, I just think what he did of volunteering, talking, taking risks, looking at how he could manage his pathway so that he could actually get into this business, get into the career, I think really highlights the kinds of things I would recommend for anybody trying to get into this. So next slide. So my path, I just wanted to mention it because it's this very winding kind of jumped around path, but I thought it would be worth mentioning just some of the highlights of my path. So I've done a lot of different things. I started a windsurfing school in New Zealand. I worked for a while at the Intel Corporation testing computer chips. Learned there that I really did not like working for a technical organization, wasn't what I wanted to do. So, I mean, that's great to learn in and of itself. I started and ran a cleaning business for a number of years, realized that also wasn't for me. I worked for the federal government. I designed a lot of the original Energy Star programs and realized then that while I felt like I was making a big difference, that wasn't something that I could feel. I actually just really did not like working for the federal government. I'm a writer, I've written novels. I mean, so I've done a lot of different things. And if you go to the next slide, the kinds of lessons that I've come out with from there I think are important for everybody to learn, but especially for people that are just starting out in their careers. You know, number one, failing is okay. Take risks, jump in with both feet, and learn from whatever it is that that whatever mistakes that you're making. You know, there's a lot of other things that you can see here that I recommend and that I've learned from. One of the most important is that last one, that the power of your network is unmatched. I cannot say that often enough. You know, you don't need to be in a green career to get into a green career. Build your network, ask questions, ask for informational interviews, connect with people on LinkedIn, just really look around and see how you can learn about what you want to do. You know, you know, learning what you love, learning what you're good at, learning what you can get paid for. You're not going to find that out by just reading about it. You need to jump in and try things out and try and figure it out. Next slide. And with that, you know, this is, if you kind of focus your phone on this code that I have up here, it's a way to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect with people. I just suggest that as you're doing that, to make sure you put a message in, you know, when you want to connect with me, that you heard me talk at the Environmental Forum's Green Jobs webinar, just because I don't connect with everybody. I connect with people that I know or have some kind of connection to. So that's it. I hope that that's useful to people.
And thank you so much. That was really inspiring. I just feel really grateful that we have you as creating such a fantastic resource for people interested in sustainability. I feel like we here in Marin are very lucky to have you. So thank you both for the presentation and for all that you do. It's remarkable.
Can I add, I forgot to add one thing, if you don't mind. We actually have a number of open positions right now for SEI. So I think we have maybe 4 open positions, but we also have more than 100 open positions through our Climate Corps program that we're going to be hiring over the next several months. So there's a lot of different positions. They're all over the country, but there are a number of them that are in California, and especially a number of them in the Bay Area. So I encourage you to go to our website to check them out.
So they're on your website. That's where people should go.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right, well, moving along, Chris Yalanis is up next, and I just want to begin by giving Chris a particular thanks, because all our presenters were very generous with their time, but Chris was fantastic, and he's so much help in putting together this event and asking us the right questions and offering some tremendous suggestions. So I want to introduce Chris, but I'm going to have to read it because it's pretty detailed. Chris has done a lot. Chris is an impact entrepreneur, community builder, and sustainability champion. He's been the co-founder and on the early teams of 6 startups, 2 of which I'm pretty sure you've heard of, Autodesk and SurveyMonkey. In 2017, he co-founded VenturePad, which is North Bay's leading co-working and entrepreneurship center. And North Bay Biz magazine called it a game changer in 2018, and it probably still is, I think. In the spring of 2021, just recently, Chris also launched this fantastic program. It's an accelerator program, which is a cohort-based program providing expert coaching, peer support, co-workspace, and access to capital for scaling startups in clean tech, sustainable food and agriculture, wellness and personal care, and edutech. So today on the panel, Chris is going to be our moderator. Thank you for taking on that extra hat. But as a panelist, she's also going to be discussing sectors in the green economy, job opportunities, the Marin climate action ecosystem, and support for entrepreneurs in sustainability. Welcome, Chris.
I'm going to talk a little bit about the climate action ecosystem and our workforce development as a county, and then move into some career and volunteer opportunities that we're seeing out there, working in climate quite a bit. And then I want to talk to the entrepreneurs in the audience who may, like many of us, don't necessarily get turned on by working for other bosses. We want to be our own boss, and we've got a great idea. We want to bring it to market. So I'm going to share with you what we can do to help you. So we've got a great history here in this county in terms of sustainability movements. We were the first in the West to create organic dairies. We have Albert Strauss to thank for that. We had community choice aggregation with Marin Clean Energy, first in the country to do that and offer 100% fossil-free energy. We were the first via Joe Garbarino to offer curbside recycling and composting with Marin Sanitary Service. We had carbon farming out in West Marin, the first in the country doing that kind of work, and now it's catching on like wildfire. Well, it's catching on like grasslands. Local food movement, we were one of the first to really spearhead that and connect farmers with consumers. And then, of course, the human potential wellness movement that started really in the 60s and 70s and is now mainstream. So what's next? Well, perhaps a zero carbon, circular, equitable economy is next. So this is a little bit of a, I don't know if this is showing up with very great resolution, but I wanted to share with you a little bit about sort of the overall sectors throughout the economy. It's not just, well, at the top around nature. So we do have sort of a natural environment in certain sectors of the green economy. We have natural resource management, we've got environmental science, and of course in the infrastructure side, the big sectors are in power, renewable energy and storage, and of course information technology, all of the IT that drives the metrics and the performance, the reporting around climate and energy. And then buildings, of course, are a big chunk of our climate and our climate and emissions footprints. And then transportation is probably our largest footprint. It's anywhere between, depending on who's counting it, 45 to 60% of Marin's carbon emissions. So you have an opportunity, I think, through infrastructure, charging stations, EV repair, to work in the transportation sector. And then the tangible sectors are things like within an organization, and it can be just about any business, any organization has a number of functions where you can sort of green that function, whether it be reducing waste or working on the building that you're in, or through some of the products that you design that have low footprints, or on the supply chain side, making sure your supply chain is greened. And then through manufacturing and distribution, applying some of these sustainable practices there. And then on the intangible side, services and experiences. Most of our economy, and certainly here in Marin, is in educating, inspiring, motivating, persuading. And many of you that have, let's say, business or marketing experiences or education can fit very well in and help your organization or help other mission-based organizations with communications, with education, and improve the awareness and create lots of calls to action to lower our carbon footprint. All right, let me forward that on. Let's see here. So, for example, we have recently, the county has recently approved a climate action plan, and we have several pathways to get to reach our 2030 goal of 60% reduction of emissions from our 2005 level. So, for example, our biggest opportunity in pathways is to get to zero emission vehicles. It's a tough haul there, just because we hold on to vehicles on average about 14 years. So, you know, maybe a clunker trade-in program or a clunker-like trade-in program is due. But a career in zero emission or in alternative transportation is going to be a big impact on our climate change efforts. course, building electrification, building efficiency is the next biggest one. And then biomass recovery, fossil-free electricity through either rooftop solar here among residents or among our commercial buildings is a very good route, also a pathway towards our mission goals. This is a recent graphic that we put together in the communities that I work in, and it really show the ecosystem that Marin is developing and acting through to get these paths taken for lower emissions and for climate change and mitigation work. So at the county level, again, the Board of Supervisors have shown a really good leadership role in staffing climate and planning. We've got they have created a program called Drawdown Marin, community-wide communication collaboration with about 150 volunteers. So I would really encourage those of you who are looking to real action around climate change to take a look at the website, Drawdown Marin, and see how you can become involved. That organization has identified about 7 shovel-ready programs and projects to have some real impact on lower emissions. Over on the policies and action sides, we have some partnerships among the towns and the various special districts, the agencies, and working on some of these coordinated county-wide projects and reporting on the efforts and the inventories of our GHG emissions. And then finally, we have a business community that is starting to really ramp up its efforts. Of course, we have folks like Solarcraft, which is one of the largest solar installers in the county, but we have many others that are in the business in more of a pure play in the renewables and storage area. Our trade unions are getting involved in training electricians, plumbers, energy efficiency experts. Our chambers are increasingly identifying opportunities to green not only their organizations but their memberships. VenturePad fits into that community of in the business community. We're working hard to be a good model, a convener of greenies, as well as having an accelerator that'll help startups in this space. So we all have an opportunity to really reach our climate goals by creating these new green jobs. And we have an opportunity post-pandemic to really build a new kind of set of models that are equitable, low carbon, and circular. So we want to, as a community, really support an economy that's diverse and inclusive. So lots of green jobs that have already been outlined by our great panel before. Electricians, building trades. My dad was an electrician while I was growing up, and it was a great job. He was happy in his work. So I have a warm place in my heart for electricians and building trades. Certainly solar and wind installers, tech, maintenance is a good opportunity. Remediation, waste management services, composting, biochar. Again, this is part of the circular economy that we are moving towards. Of course, in the environmental science area, or hydrologists, conservation techs, we have a number of state national parks right here in our county that are active in conservation work and education. So I want to talk to you briefly about our accelerator. VenturePad was started about 4 years ago, and since we've opened, we have about 400 members: corporate commuters, solopreneurs, startups, nonprofits, and we have a workspace here and a meeting space for folks to come in and share. And we have a membership model, and when it's time to get out of the home office, we'd love to hear from you and take a look at the website. So we were honored to be Green Business of the Year in 2018 and 2019. That year, or 2018, is we organized Marin's first Sustainable Enterprise Conference. Some of you have attended that. And now that we're convening more as a community, I think we're going to ramp that up again for this fall. Look forward to it. So our Impact Accelerator is really designed to launch and scale about 20 sustainable growth businesses a year. And we're going to have these in 2 cohorts a year. We're going to offer affordable co-working, a meeting space, a professional, personal development, coaching and mentoring, access to talent, access to capital. And so, for example, incubators and accelerators have worked really well here in Marin. And here's an example of a few that are still in business, doing well. One of you might have heard of, actually one is Enphase. Enphase is a micro inverter company that was up in Petaluma, was founded about 15 years ago, and had an IPO, was bought by Solar City, and of course bought then by Tesla. But we have some companies that have done really well here and have gone out public or have been acquired at very high valuations. So we have a history of entrepreneurship, a lot of them in medical and in food, and as well as in renewables. So we have a successful track history, and we'd love to hear from you if you have a great idea, or if you have a company now that's generating some revenue in the sustainability area. We'd love to hear from you. You can take a look at the program at venturepad.works/accelerator. So we hope to hear from you about that.
Thanks so much, Chris. So I wanted to, we're now going to go into the Q&A. Chris is going to start choosing some good questions. I noticed that Cyan actually answered one in the chat, in the Q&A, and then it went to the answered questions section, but I thought it was a good question. I wanted to ask you, give it just a little bit of airplay. Cyan, could you say a little bit more about the internships available? If you're still there.
Sure, yeah, I'm still here.
I know Cyan has to leave early, so I just wanted to get a chance to hear from her directly before she has to run off.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, and I still have a little bit of time, so I think that's fine. Yeah, so I have a couple recommendations about internships, and as you might have seen from my talk, I'm a huge proponent of internships. So we actually offer a lot of internships at my organization. So if you're interested, just please email me, or I think on our website in the jobs section, there's a place where you can ask to volunteer for us. And we have a lot of different types of internships available. So I'm happy to talk about that. But I know that there's a lot of other organizations in the county that offer them. We get them because through the Marin School of Environmental Leadership, people send us internship opportunities, and we generally try and share those as much as I can with our students. But you can also reach directly out to an organization. A lot of times organizations don't know that they could do internships, but if you tell them what you could do for them, then they often, it's back to that same thing of take a risk, jump in, do cold calls, just let people know that you really would like to try it out. There's some limitations that companies might have, like a solar company can't allow someone that's under the age of, I think it's 18, might be 16, to get up on a roof and do solar installations, but they might have you do some data entry or some sales kind of work for you. I had one intern that was doing using their drone to do flyovers of rooftops to help them with kind of sales opportunities and assessments. That was a volunteer internship that he was really excited about, his new drone. And so, so there's all kinds of things that you can do. So hope that's helpful.
Thanks, Cyan. Jennifer and Justine, can you unmute? Justine, I've got a question from Robert with regard to your green jobs slide. Unfortunately, green solar and wind jobs are 95% construction jobs, not long-term jobs, although that we may differ on that. Well, we need to stop buying Chinese-made panels, inverters, and ensure that equipment is US-made. We need manufacturing jobs. So just was curious if you had a reaction to that, Justine.
I'm going to share my screen because I pulled up Mark Jacobson's solutions project graphic. So you might be familiar with the solutions project Mark and his grad students calculated for each of the 50 states, and now they're working on all the countries. If they all went 100% renewables, how many jobs would be created? And you can see at the bottom here, he says, here are the number of 40-year jobs that would be created. So jobs where a person is employed for 40 consecutive years. So agreed that a lot of the renewables implementation work is construction, but they're also operations jobs. So they calculated 315,000 construction jobs where you're moving from project to project to project, still doing construction for 40 straight years, and then a number of operations jobs. And Robert, thank you for bringing up that we do need manufacturing jobs in the US, and that a lot of these components and panels are made in Asia. Please do connect with John Rinn on Twitter. He wrote a book on green manufacturing in the US, and we need more advocates for manufacturing here. Definitely 100% agreed.
Oh. Thanks, Justine. For the whole panel, any job training opportunities for older adults making a career pivot?
Sure. I also just wanted to echo what Justine said about the green manufacturing jobs. I would point to our president, who made a big plug for green manufacturing in the US in his address last night. So I think we're headed in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
Regarding training programs for older adults making a career pivot, if you're interested in doing physical type work or working with a contractor, we take all shapes and sizes in our program. There's also a number of green training programs throughout the 4-county footprint that Emcee serves, which is Solano, Napa, Marin, and Contra Costa counties. So I would look to your community colleges and also workforce development boards for suggestions, as well as going to the training providers themselves, such as Rising Sun, Center for Opportunities, and Richmond Build. There's quite a few training opportunities if you want to make a career change, or you just want some more education about green careers.
Jennifer, I took the PG&E Energy Center classes. Are those still going on?
Absolutely. Even with the pandemic, those courses are ongoing. They're all online. They have closed some of their on-site facilities, so probably going, headed into long-term, those are going to be online. So make sure you sign up for those. Lots of really, really good courses there.
If I could just add that, for our Climate Core program is open to any age, so it's not just for young recent grads, although that seems to be the main place that we get people. It's a stipended program, so it's not a high wage. And there's I would also just recommend going again back into internships and just looking at, if you're trying to transition, looking at what is it that you have that's your experience, and where is it that you can find work, what are the kind of next phases of work that are coming out. And there's also, like, you could get a green MBA, you could talk to, there's people that have green coaching jobs that help you to kind of green your career a little bit. So there's all kinds of opportunities that way.
I just wanted to share that mid-career people might be open to, if they have an entrepreneurial side, starting a tool lending library or a building deconstruction firm, or any of these, a lot of circular economy jobs. I've got a list of 30 different green jobs projects that could create millions of jobs. So if you're feeling like you have enough experience under your belt that you're ready to start your own thing, then there are a lot of opportunities as well.
Thank you, panelists. In fact, I'm personally, I have a story about a career pivot about 12 years ago. I was in tech for 30 years and wanted to get meaning back into my work and greened my MBA. Looked at the Presidio Graduate School, which has one of the top ones in the country. So take a look at that program. They also have a executive certificate program there. So if you all are in business or have business backgrounds, but also want to be able to speak intelligently about the discipline of sustainable practices, then going back to a green MBA program, or at least just going up even to Sonoma State. They've got both at a graduate and undergraduate level classes in green sustainable management. So, okay, let's go through a couple of other. This for the whole panel. How long until federal money makes it here to create more job opportunities? Is Marin creating coalitions to assure that federal money goes to a variety of job types and communities?
So, I mean, I have a couple of answers to that. Justine or Jennifer might also have answers to that. I think one of the answers that I can say is that there was a really interesting article in the New York Times recently about as soon as the president of the United States starts announcing their commitment to climate, there's all kinds of entrepreneurial upswellings that happen all over the world. And those upswellings create jobs. And so we're actually seeing right now an immediate effect from all of the announcements that Biden has been making about our increased commitment to climate. Hooray, hallelujah, woohoo, all those kinds of things. But also the federal money that will be coming through, there's going to be infrastructure money, there's going to be kind of career technical education money, there's going to be the Civilian Climate Corps money. Some of that is going to be connected to different bills that are starting to make their way through Congress. So I would expect, from that upswelling, the direct funding, some of it will come soon. It'll come through like workforce investment boards, through the Department of Labor, some of it through Department of Education, and some of it we'll be seeing further down the line, probably August or September, and then through different grant programs, and that will take longer to come out to us.
Just quickly wanted to share that while we're all excited about Biden wanting to put money behind the infrastructure bill and for workforce development, the private financial sector is also looking for opportunities to invest. And a few months ago, I taped a podcast with Jigar Shah, who at the time was with Generate Capital, a project finance private organization. And he said, listen, Justin, we've raised $1 trillion for climate solutions. We've only deployed 300 billion of it. We need more requests for proposals from school districts for solar microgrids. Like, there's money out there that would like to invest if there's an attractive return on investment. So federal government doesn't need to do all the heavy lifting, although we sure appreciate that there's attention and focus and money working its way through Congress at this point.
I'm sorry, if I could just build on that, Justine, you're absolutely right. And what I'm actually seeing in the corporate sector is not just that, but there's an increased commitment to doing climate related work in the corporate sector. So they have all of these metrics that they have to meet, that they've set for themselves, and that creates jobs. They have metrics that are related to solar, related to climate reduction for their own organizations. And all of that is actually creating, we have a dramatic increase in Climate Corps fellows being placed in corporate kind of sustainability kind of level of organizations. So there's that as well. I mean, but yes, definitely we're seeing a lot more investment from the private sector.
I have a question from Brianna Collins. Brianna asks about sort of sustainability or environmental types of work in the healthcare field. And healthcare is one of Marin's biggest employing sectors. And what are the panel's ideas around sort of green jobs, or at least sustainability practices in healthcare? And what are some ideas about combining taking care of people with taking care of the environment?
One of the things that MCE does is we do combine energy efficiency, education, and incentives with health and safety benefits for our customers as well. So by simply pointing people to programs that incentivize making small changes at your patients' homes, you're doing a lot to help their health and safety, as well as saving them some money by upgrading technologies and changing things out to more efficient technologies. For example, we partner with the Marin Community Foundation to provide incentives through what's called the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative. So folks that are in a compromised housing situation where there may be health and safety issues, on top of there needing to be new heaters installed and new insulation, we incentivize that for the customer. So just getting involved in the some of the programs that we offer at MCE that are all, you know, paid for through the property owner or at no cost is a good way to start. And just educating yourself about how saving energy and moving towards greener technologies improves the health of your patients is a good, just very first step for you. I don't know.
I just want to, oh, sorry. I just want to encourage to look at the amount of solid waste that's generated in the healthcare field. Is there an opportunity over the last 30 years, I've seen a switch from washable, reusable, sterilizable to one-use disposable and throw in the red bin, the biohazard bin. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to cut costs in the healthcare industry if a thoughtful study of what really needs to go into the red biohazard bin, what needs to be thrown out, and what could be sterilized or what could be washed and reused, like really sorting out the different options there could reduce healthcare costs a lot for consumable materials.
And just from our perspective, we've had several Climate Corps fellows that have gone into different healthcare organizations. There's been in Kaiser, there's some that are working up in the Pacific Northwest. And a lot of them like establishing green teams for employees. I mean, that's just looking at doing zero waste lunches for employees. I mean, like there are people that have a carbon footprint that work at the organization, but then also their facilities. So yes, there's the waste that's very particular to a hospital situation, but there's also, they have HVAC, they have heating, air conditioning, filtering, all kinds of different impacts that have carbon impacts that our fellows have worked on for different people in healthcare. And yes, there is also always that connection. Jennifer, I love that you brought up the Green and Healthy Homes Initiative, because there's always that connection between health and your own health and environmental health.
This wraps it up for now. And I found so much interesting information and exciting information today. I just thank you, speakers. Thank you, sponsors. Thank you, participants, for coming together today to really learn more about what we can all do to get green jobs and do our best to make this a better place and avert the worst of climate change. So thank you everyone tonight for your participation. We really appreciate it on behalf of the Environmental Forum of Marin. Take care.
Thanks, Anne, Christine. Thanks, DFM. Thank you, panelists.